the most fun you can have on two wheels. A look at the world's favorite transportation.
From Strauss to Hendrix and Bach, meet the cream of the classical crop.
And the hottest looks on the streets of New York City.
Hi, and welcome to YTV News.
And welcome back from your vacation.
Thank you very much.
It's August, which means there's still another month of fun, sun, and ice cream.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Sunday.
Segue, right? The first ever ice cream sundae was made in the 1890s in a small U.S. town called Evanston, Illinois.
Why? Well, the town had banned the sale of ice cream sodas on Sundays because ministers complained that too many people were sucking sodas at their local ice cream parlor instead of going to church.
To get around the law, ice cream parlor owners started offering ice cream sundaes, ice cream sodas without the soda.
From sodas to bikes. Do you remember your first two-wheeler? I don't mean the one with a training wheel. I mean like a real bike.
I guess I got mine when I was about 7. And it was gold, and it had the sparkly banana seat and tassels on the hand grips, and I customized it with stickers and straws and hockey cards and the whole bit.
Banana seat. Sounds pretty cool.
Well, it was at the time.
Well, bikes have come a long way since the banana seat. In focus this week, YTV's Karen Sugar gives us a look at the history and the future of the bicycle.
When I ride, it's like a freedom. Going out to the countryside. It gives you time to think. It's enjoyable. It's a lot of fun.
Mike Berry knows all about bikes. He works in a bike store and is one of the top cyclists in Canada.
And this year I've done 30 races already. It's almost 2 a weekend, and we travel a lot, and my goal this year is to go to the World Championships in Australia.
Not everyone spends as much time in the saddle, but cycling is the most popular pastime in Canada, bigger than tennis, swimming, or running. More than 1 million bikes are sold in Canada each year. And although more people are cycling to school and work, most people still ride their bike for fun. That's not the case everywhere. Take China, for example. The country has more than 1 billion people and just as many bikes. The Chinese use their bikes to get around the crowded streets. It's a heck of a lot easier to park this than it is to find a spot for that.
If you think about it, the bicycle's almost too good to be true. It's environmentally friendly, a lot cheaper than a car, and is great exercise. But the bicycles of the past weren't nearly as user-friendly as they are today.
This is what one of the earliest bikes looked like. It's called the high wheel and was very popular back in the 1800s. The big front wheel made it difficult to get on and off the bike. But that didn't discourage a lot of young, rich men from paying $200 for the bike. This one, called the hobby horse, was built entirely out of wood. It was cheap to make, but it was heavy and didn't have pedals. These bikes were hard on your feet, not to mention your shoes.
This is the safety bicycle and your modern day mountain bike, and as you can see, bikes haven't really changed too much. The frame design is the same, the handlebars are pretty much the same. There's room for fenders as there is on the mountain bike, and it's pretty much the same. It's chain driven, and other than the gears and the brakes, the bike hasn't evolved much back from 1890.
But it's hard to imagine anyone racing in the Tour de France on a wooden bike. This annual race gets more publicity than all other bike races combined. It's the world's longest race at 3,720 kilometers. And the Tour de France serves another purpose. It's a chance to see what the bicycles of the future will look like. Mike's father services the bicycles of the champions.
Well, there is one innovation here which has come in the last few years. It was really made very popular by Greg LeMond. It's the profile bars in which the rider sits with his arms together like that, which reduces the frontal wind resistance. The disc wheel reduces the wind resistance of the spokes, or eliminates the wind resistance of the spokes, and the profile bars at the narrow position of the arms makes the rider more aerodynamic.
And this is what most of us ride around on, the mountain bike. It was designed for this kind of terrain, so handling city streets is no problem. The starting price is about $150, but they can run into the thousands of dollars if you throw in the accessories.
One bicycle accessory you shouldn't forget is the helmet. You can pick one up for about $40 and prevent serious injury to yourself. For YTV News, I'm Karen Sugar.
My father gave me a big running push. I rode a little while, I wiped out, I got back on and tried again.
First time I rode a bike was scary. I hit a wall.
Well, I learned to ride a bike like I was 10, so I was late. So the first time I was nervous and I hit a wall like she did too. So I got a little scratch, but it was okay.
I had a red tricycle and I made the transition to a blue bike with training wheels, and after my dad took off the training wheels, I would try to ride it, and I fell over a lot, but it was a lot of fun.
My dad bought me this cool bike called Machine, and I was riding, and my dad was watching me. I go, Dad, look at me, right? So I just turned, I fell, and I scraped my elbow, and he started laughing. So that's the first time I rode my bike.
Do you remember your first time?
First two-wheeler?
Yeah.
I remember it was no thanks to my older sister,
Why is
Gardia,
that?
who was supposed to be running along and helping me to balance. Well, she gave up, and I ended up wiping out.
Oh my gosh, that happened in the parking lot last week, actually. When we come back, Rhonda McMichael tunes up with some of Canada's best musicians, plus a first-person report on living with HIV.
I remember.
The film Jurassic Park gives us a great opportunity to think about how desire is really created in our society after all. Is it because all of us are millions and millions and millions of dollars interested in this movie that everyone's buying the board games, the shoes, the bubble bath, the string, the lunch boxes? Or maybe is it because millions and millions and millions of dollars have been invested to make sure that we do? After all, here we have a movie that before its release, before anyone had even seen it, it's toys and it's video games and it's this and it's that and it's everything you can think of was already on the market, heavily promoted and being consumed before me or you or anyone had even seen the movie. So how does this happen? Why is it that certain people in our culture and in our society can conglomerate their interests in order to wrest the attention of a culture away from certain issues at certain times? Why? I want to know why.
If you've got something to say, why not put it on videotape? Get yourself in front of a camcorder and record a 1-minute message. If we put it on the air, you'll get a YTV News baseball cap. Here's our address. It's YTV News, 64 Jefferson Avenue, Unit 18, Toronto, Ontario, M6K 3H3.
Some people spend the summer working or just taking it easy. Others think spending sunny days inside while some guy waves a baton at you is a great way to spend the summer. That's what 80 young musicians are doing in Guelph, Ontario. They were chosen from across Canada to play in the National Youth Orchestra. The musicians get intensive training and then take their show on the road. YTV's Rhonda McMichael caught up with them.
This isn't your normal summer camp. You won't find hiking, campfires, or water sports. What you will find are violins, French horns, and cellos. These people are spending their summer making music. Only the best get to come here. No amateurs allowed. Is that what it's supposed to sound like? No. That means a summer of hard work. But there is a big payoff. A lot of these musicians will get jobs in professional orchestras.
The last 3 summers I've been going to school and put my bass down for 4 months and work in a factory just to make money to go back to school. And here is actually one of the first summers where I've actually just played my bass all summer long.
People like Pat also get a chance to work with world-class teachers and conductors. But underneath all the Bach and Strauss, they're into everything from 70s disco to country.
Rush is one of my favorite bands. Supertramp, old Genesis.
Or maybe Jimi Hendrix. So Pat, did you ever aspire to be a rock star?
I was doing this and I was playing in a rock band at the same time with a bunch of people actually at university that I was saying, well, if we make it, we make it, and if we don't, eventually we just gave up and said, well, think classical is the way to go because hours are better.
To be a rock star, that would be quite interesting. It would be fun. It would be nice to be famous, be rich.
Being a classical musician may not be as glamorous as being a rock star. In fact, violinist Chloe Myers says some people actually think classical music is nerdy.
It was in junior high and high school, but as you get older, people have actually a lot more respect. They're like, wow, you can actually play that instrument, you know? And you can play something really simple on the violin, and they're just in awe. They absolutely know nothing about it. It's great. You can really impress them.
But that's not the best part of playing classical music.
You work for just about 2 weeks just doing sectionals, and it's like starting with just the first violins, and then you put all the violins, and then you put all the strings together. And so when you finally get to put all the instruments together, you get to see how each part fits and how your part fits, and it's really exciting.
It's unmistakably one of the best sensations you can have.
It is. Yep. It makes all those years of practicing definitely worthwhile.
For YTV News, I'm Rhonda McMichael.
Thanks, Rhonda. Right now, we've got a baby beluga, some unusual pets, and mice. Lots of mice. Here's Janice with Our World.
Zookeepers at the Coney Island Aquarium managed to capture the birth of their new baby beluga whale on videotape. Belugas start out life a blue-gray color and eventually turn completely white. This baby beluga is now about 2.5 weeks old and in good health. Zookeepers still haven't decided on a name. And this is Richard Dion's newest family member. It's a baby skunk he named Chanel. Richard rescued the skunk from under a local restaurant a few weeks ago, and the pair have become pretty close. Wildlife officials don't usually allow people to keep wild animals as pets, but Richard says Chanel depends on him.
She's too tame for the wild.
And speaking of unusual pets, how would you like a gopher? Some Japanese pet stores are selling them for nearly $500 a pop. The gopher is considered a pest in Canada, and most farmers would love to turn them into a cash crop.
There may be a small market which may be good enough to make a very good living for half a dozen entrepreneurs in Saskatchewan.
Talk about pests. This is southern Australia, which is being overrun by a plague of mice. The mouse population has taken off because of good weather and plenty of food. So far, they've eaten tens of millions of dollars worth of grain. Farmers say it's not worth planting crops until they can solve their mouse problem.
If you received a blood transfusion between 1978 and 1985, there's something you may not know. That blood was not tested for HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. That's a big concern for a lot of people, especially for many of Canada's 5,000 hemophiliacs. Hemophilia is a hereditary disease where your blood doesn't clot properly, which means that a hemophiliac who gets even a simple cut could bleed to death. That's why hemophiliacs need regular blood transfusions. Our first person this week is a 23-year-old hemophiliac who is HIV positive. This is Vincent. He lives in Montreal now, but he was infected 8 years ago when he was growing up in France. This is his wife, Emmanuelle. Their story is not about HIV. It's about trust, honesty, and courage.
When I met Vincent, we started being friends. We went for coffee one day and he started talking about life, who we were, and all of that. After 1 or 2 hours, he started telling me about the fact that he was HIV positive, and we talked about it, but not a lot, because I think he mostly wanted to tell me, to let me think about it. And I had already been in contact with people who were HIV positive. So I would say the essential questions I didn't have necessarily to ask right at that time.
The biggest fear it's been that Emmanuelle got contaminated. That's a big fear. Even if the risk is close to nil, for me it's like I have to deal with this, and it's very hard for me to live with that.
We can get very real and conceive the possibility of me being contaminated, and talk about the consequences, how we can deal with it, what we should do about it,
We trust in the way we live. We trust in our sexual relation and all the care we take, and so it's lot more easier.
This house is very special to us because we bought it from the money Vincent received from the French settlement. There was a trial in France, and the government decided to give a certain amount of money to each hemophiliac that became HIV positive. Vincent received a certain amount, and that's how we came to buy this house. We should call Steve and go buy the flat. And he's a man of great integrity, and that's very rare. Especially, I find, in our generation, we often have positions that are very, we try to go for compromises. So our positions are often sort of in between, Vincent sometimes is too radical, but it's always because he speaks with his heart and he follows that.
An HIV positive guy can live normally, and everybody has to understand that, and everybody has to help HIV positive people to live normally, because we have the right to live normally and we can live normally. And I think I'm a good example of that.
When we come back, Rhea John will have the latest on New York street fashion, plus a visit with Duncan McHugh and his most excellent day. Stay tuned.